So welcome everybody to another review as read. Today we are talking about Reaper of Souls by Dan Abnett and Mike Lee from the Black Library. Now Reaper of Souls is the third book in the Malus Darkblade series, and this story continues after the events of Bloodstorm and Malus returning to Nagroth after obtaining the second Chaos artifact, the Idol, from the Chaos Skinrider Pirates. The book focuses on the subsequent methods of not only how Malus goes about to get the third artifact so that he can release himself from the demon's grip on his soul, but also how he goes about with his own goals of raising his standing in Hagref to one day take it over, and even at one point pitting two Dark Elf cities' armies against each other. So we'll do it like always, with the cons, the pros, and a conclusion. So let's get into it. Now the only con of the book, and even then it is not that much of an issue, is that knowledge of the previous books and the Warhammer universe does help to get one more involved and understand the story more, such as when there's assassination attempt. And the reasons why are explained, but if you knew the previous book's history, you understand a lot more why it mattered so much to the people doing it and so on. And again, I have to say that as a standalone book, it's still a good read. So with that, let's get on to the pros of the book. Now, the first pro of the book is the story's scope. It has grown much more epic since the second book, which already increased its scope since the first book. And in Reaper of Souls, there are 4 big arcs compared to 2 in Bloodstorm. And yet it all flows so well and smoothly. For example, the transition from the treasure hunt, so to speak, to a political scene, to a war scene, all stay balanced, and not one aspect dominates the book so much that if you did not like that one aspect of the book, it would be boring. And within each part of the story, there are interminglings of each other, so it just works. Like for me, I'm not that keen on the treasure hunting part, but at the same time, they included some stuff which I won't spoil, which really racked it up for me. The second part of the book is, again, since the start of the series, the characters. And of course, Malus himself. The characters all do things with good reasons behind it, and that's the base reason why I like them. Example, a warlord of the Dark Elves, whose whole society is based on backstabbing and all that, would allow his army to be commanded not by himself, but by his son. And of course the reason is that he wants his son to rule the conquered land, and it is also an insult to the enemy that he did not deem it worthy to lead the army himself. And on top of that, the characters are not just archetypes, or even if they are, they get some kind of personality behind them that makes them interesting. And on Malus himself, one gets an insight into him, his thoughts, and his aspirations to rule by any means necessary. Yet, there is a sense of nobility to him when he runs an army, and he does it really professionally, which kind of feels very different almost compared to all the plotting and the backstabbing and the unsightly ways he does things in his normal day-to-day life. And he also leads from the front, which also when you read it makes it feel like he is worthy to lead this army. But that being said, his character also balances itself, as usually all the bad situations he gets himself in, he puts himself in. Malus gets himself into all these bad situations. It's the third pro of the book. Throughout the book, Malus basically suffers wounds and constant pain and fatigue and all of that. And like Daemon's Curse, they give you just enough detail where it is not gruesome, but definitely makes you feel the sense of cringe. For example, at some points of the book, they explain how he's covered in dried blood, waste, sweat, over days of fighting without showering, and how his hair is matted into thick clumps because of all the mace and blood. Makes you imagine how horrible it is, which is a really good thing when an author can make you feel that. The fourth pro of the book is definitely the war scenes. Now this book finally has a full-scale army with field battles, and not just one. And one must understand that this book is based on the Warhammer Fantasy universe, of which the tabletop game is basically field battles. So if you are a Warhammer fan, this definitely will help increase your love for this book. Now the battles play out well, fighting wise, and actually do have some depth. Example, one hook of it is that the pride of the commander sacrifices good military advice due to his personal feud with Malus, and how that affects the army, and how Malus has to take things into his own hands, so on and so forth. So in conclusion, the third book of Reaper of Souls is an upgrade from the second book, Bloodstorm, which I already liked. Especially its scope, it actually makes the whole story so much more epic. and it actually sets up the later part of Malus's story, and you feel a sense that now the stakes have really been risen. But that being said, even as a single book, this is an excellent book. The story does complete itself. There is a hook of what happens next, but if you didn't read it and you just read it by itself, it's still satisfying in my view. So that is Reaper of Souls. Thank you very much. Subscribe, like, comment, let me know what you think. Till next word.